Thank you, Vinnie, for inviting me. I'm Nasi Jazayeri, EVP and GM for public sector at Salesforce. I've been at Salesforce for 15 years, and I'm here to really share with you and the audience what we are doing to really help the government agencies to go through digital transformation.
Nasi, thank you for coming over, and looking forward to this. Public sector is a big domain, so.
Well, Vinnie, first of all, I'm very excited to announce that we published our connected government report this morning, actually at 8 a.m. EST today. And I want to share some stats with you before we even get started. So basically, what we have seen as part of our report is trust. Trust is paramount, and 87% of people believe trust becomes more important in times of change. And honestly, if you ask me, I think it's not about time of change. It's just 87% of people should be believing trust at all times, period. I think given everything that's going on, this is at the heart of everything we do, every interaction we have, there needs to be trust. And poor CX, this is, again, poor customer experience. 16% of people believe that government has successfully used technology to improve customer experiences. Lots of headroom here. And lastly, lack of employee tools. 47% of people feel that government employees lack the necessary tools to effectively serve the public. Now, all of these are really at the heart of challenges that are facing government agencies. We just talked about trust. With all the cybersecurity threats, attacks that are happening day in, day out, people worry. People worry about their information, sharing the information. Is it going to get hacked? How it's going to get used? We go through it day in, day out in general. So this is nothing new, but it's important because of all the security hacks that has happened. Fragmented experience. I think all of us talk from prior experience where you want to go to a government agency site and apply for a service. Guess what? You have to go to multiple sites. You have multiple applications to fill in. It's hard. It's very hard, and it's not pleasant experience. And transparency is part of experience. When you apply for a service, what happened to my application? What's the status of it? And a lot of times people don't have any idea, but more importantly, they get a notification, it got rejected, you have no idea why, or they got approved, but you don't know why you got what you got. For example, if it's a grant, why did I get $5,000 versus $10,000 I applied for? Is it unemployment insurance? Why did I get $500 versus $1,000 I was expecting? So transparency is very important. And I'm going to share with you, about 9 months ago or so, Shepard Smith on CNBC had a section around small, medium business administration, where there were all sort of lawsuits that are happening, and people were complaining back and forth about the loans that they had applied for, and they had no idea what got rejected or what it got approved, but for such a smaller amount. So transparency can bring a lot of efficiency and great experience into the interaction that happens day in, day out with government agencies. And of course, legacy systems. When you have legacy systems and you try to innovate, it takes a long time. It takes the agility out of the picture. So it has become a huge challenge. And lastly, we talked about employee productivity. If you have great employee productivity, you're going to provide a great citizen experience. So putting all this together, I just want to highlight, from my point of view, you look at government agencies, government in general. To me, it's the biggest B2C vendor in the world. They're touching billions of people. So any incremental improvement across the board will have a huge impact on a huge population in general.
So Nasi, quick question.
Sure.
When you say agency, define government. Is it, in your mind, federal, local, state?
It's government across the board. It's defense. It's state and local, it's federal. Again, we deal, all of us as a person, as a small business, we interact specifically with state and local and federal agencies day in, day out. So those are the two segments that we are really focused on trying to work closely with them. Of course, if you look at even defense as well, across the board, depending to the segment as well, employee productivity, recruiting, onboarding, continuous skilling applies across the board. I mean, given the great resignation, the great migration, given what's happening right now with inflation, resources are very constrained, budget is constrained. So what do we do to recruit, to retain, and continue to develop people's skills? So some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today applies to state and local and federal, but employee productivity, recruiting, onboarding applies to all segments of government. Okay. So at Salesforce Customer 360 for Government. So let me just walk you through. On the left-hand side, you see 5 key things, Vinnie, that applies no matter what kind of agency you are and no matter, again, what kind of use cases we're talking about. Relationship management, you have to have the right relationship with your citizens. Case management is all around better servicing, faster servicing. That's why we call public sector public service. Everything's about service. Collaboration, of course, effective collaboration doesn't matter internal amongst employees, but internal and external with citizens as they're applying for a service. How do you interact with them? Integration is super important because every system cannot be on its own island. It has to be integrated to all other systems that are within the agency. So it's a very, very important aspect of being able to deploy an application in government agencies. It needs to be able to integrate. And of course, data insight. How do you run your business? Insights into how you're running your business. Is it effective? It's not. Where are the hotspots? So those are the 5 things. And out of the 5 things, basically, we're bringing all the technology that's required to effectively address these 5 very specific areas. Now, on the right-hand side, of course, you have omni-channel, dealing with citizens. They come through the app, they come through the web, through different channels, bots. Being able to provide that omni-channel experience is super important. But as I mentioned, when you go into what we just talked about in inflation, which is really constraining our budget, constraining our resources, automation becomes super important because that's where you start seeing efficiency into your agency. Workflows and what you see, low-code, no-code platform as we provide, then, and given all the changes with regulations, it's all self-service. You don't need to go hire a big IT team. You need to go and get a system integrator to do the most basic stuff that you need to do yourself, day in, day out. And of course, all of these things is built on Hyperforce, which is our infrastructure that allows us to run on any public cloud and give us that agility and mobility across the board. Now, you know, I've been traveling, Vinnie, this past year and meeting with all sorts of customers and partners, our system integrators. And recently I was in Europe in 5 different countries. And guess what? Everybody, all these agencies, doesn't matter where they are, they all expect the following 5 outcomes. Number 1, fast implementation. This is dear and near to everybody's heart. On budget, we knew this. It's all validated again and again, where we have very much budget constraint, and people want to make sure that they want to work on a platform with a vendor that reduces project risk. This is coming up again and again. And integration, one of the things that we all have learned dealing with government is nobody will rip and replace their existing infrastructure day one. They want to go module by module. So as you implement one part, you transform that, you move to the next one. Hence, it is super important to be able to integrate the area that you are transforming with the rest of the system. And then compliance at the heart of everything we do, as I mentioned, is around compliance, it's about trust. And then the thing that is really very, very important, especially in Europe, that I came across, and even APAC for that matter, is change management. So as we go and talk to our agencies, our government agencies, they always ask, they look at number 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they always ask that, okay, well, we're going to go and change our platform, change our technology. How are you ensuring to make sure that our employees are on a journey to learn about your technology and to be very versed in your technology? What kind of skilling you're going to help us with, etc. So this was, for most people, it's probably, we take this for granted, but this is an aha moment that you really need to pay attention. It's just not about technology, but how you move everybody with you to the new technology and making sure that the employees are onboarded and they understand your technology well and they can hit the ground running fast. So with that, what we have done over the past 2.5 years really is to build what we call public sector solutions. Public sector solutions is a layer that we have built on top of our customer 360 that allows us to bring to market very much public sector tailored applications like grants management, financial assistance, licensing and permitting, inspection, emergency programs, social services, employee experience we just talked about. So how do you bring these very important key use cases into the market in a fast way? And this is really at the heart of everything we do. So I just talked about Service Cloud and Platform. This is our customer 360. What happens, Vinnie, across the board, the reason you see these long-running projects, high risk, high cost, etc., is that there are no standards. There are no standards. Every agency is implementing it differently, the data model. Every SI is different, implementing it in a different way. The same use case, it's grants management, different data models, different components, different implementation. So what we're trying to do is, as part of our design principle, is that best practices to drive as much standardization as possible for all of these use cases with out-of-the-box data model, with out-of-the-box component, and processes. So this way, everybody is implementing in the best way that we have learned from all the different implementation across customers, bring the best practices over. And if you look at above this data model, what are the type of components, technologies we're bringing in? If you look at public sector, everybody needs to come into a portal and log into the portal and file their application, submit their application. And as part of that, you need dynamic forms. You need public and authenticated portals. So that's where dynamic form comes in. That's where community comes in. Every business process is about eligibility and so on. Well, you need a business rule. And one of the things that I just talked about Shepard Smith, was that if you bring transparency to the business process, it makes everything super efficient. Decision Explainer is a great example of that. Imagine you're just applying for a grant or you're applying for unemployment insurance. Well, guess what? When you do your application, submit your application, if the system comes back and says, this is why your application got rejected, these are the triggers, or this is why your application got approved, these are the triggers you passed, and this is why you got $500 per month as part of your unemployment insurance versus $1,000, it becomes in a very consumer-friendly explanation. All of a sudden, all those calls that goes into your contact center, you reduce all those calls. You provide a much, much better experience to citizens to quickly realize why they got rejected or why they got approved and for how much. So these are the type of things that we are trying to really help the agencies to be more efficient and more effective in their day-to-day interactions with citizens through these sort of technologies, through these sort of out-of-the-box tailor-made data models, components, etc., across all the use cases. As I mentioned, LPI, social services, financial assistance, grants management, all of them, if you look at the bottom, all of them have very common set of processes. Everybody requires the outreach. You need to do an intake. You need to review the application. You need to inspect and assess the situation. You need to approve or reject and then provide a service. So we have taken these common processes and built the data model, built the components, built the technology on top. So when you're about to really transform your legacy implementation, you can hit the ground running and meet those 5 very key outcomes that we've been talking about. So let me give you some example. Let's bring this to life. Again, if you look at New Mexico, Regulation and Licensing Department, this is super important because it's a very much we are supporting with public sector solutions 30 plus boards and supporting 500,000 professionals. New Mexico is supporting them across the board. And guess what has happened? Since they have implemented public sector solution for their LPI use cases, if you look at the bottom, we have gone from 4 hours delivery timeline to 15 minutes. That is 16x improvement. And this is the type of transformation that really gets agencies, states super excited because now you are providing faster service and you're reducing costs by bringing all your occupational licensing into a single platform. And that's the benefit that New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department has realized. Now, on top of that, which is really what we're seeing is, well, we want to see them grow. I mean, you want to create what we call government in a box. You want to have one platform that supports all your different use cases, as I showed in the previous slides. And guess what? Well, now, on the heels of the success of the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, New Mexico Human Services Department is transforming their citizen services, such as child support, cash assistance, energy and utility assistance, supplement nutrition assistance program, behavioral health. Citizens, families are coming and applying for these services. 30,000 to 50,000 applications per month is being supported on this platform with over 7 billion with a B in budget. So these are the type of, again, high scale states and agencies that we're providing, starting in one place and growing it into other use cases. And the third use case that I have for you is very similar to what we talked about, but a totally different state. And this is Wyoming Department of Family Services. They have implemented exactly the same thing we just talked about. And during the pandemic, over 400 million in relief funding was distributed through this platform. So net, as you can see, example after example, or as each state is growing their use cases on the same platform, they are seeing huge improvements in efficiency, productivity, cost savings, and back to what we just talked about, trust and customer engagement and employee productivity across the board. And we're so excited, but this is not all. During Dreamforce, in another 3-4 weeks, we're going to be announcing so many new products with public sector, with public sector solutions that I would like to ask everybody to register and dial into Dreamforce sessions to hear about all these new products that we're launching in another 4 weeks. Thank you, Vinnie.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting. Thank you.